and welcome to Ladies of the Paranormal World. You've got your host, Dark Angel, Drusilla, Wendigo, and Skinwalker. As always, we're keeping it cool, and today we have a super VVIP guest today, Sophia Temporelli. Is that correct?
Yeah.
She is from the Ghost Host show. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into all the spooks and howls of the show?
Okay. Like you said, my name is Sophia Temporelli. I'm 23 years old, a paranormal investigator and radio host. I've been a paranormal investigator since I was 8 years old and a radio host since I was 12 years old. When I was 8, I went on a tour on the Queen Mary and just fell in love with the paranormal. And by the age of 9, we realized that the house I was living in was haunted. And just my experiences there made me want to find other people around my age in the paranormal that had similar experiences. So I started my radio show, the Ghost Host Online Paranormal.com, and here I am 11 years later.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Fixing my face. Drusilla, take over for a sec.
Sorry, but
My
you said you started at a young age. Was it just like a tour, or did you were you attracted inside? That makes sense.
Yeah,
Some
so
people, they just
mhm.
are felt they're inside themselves. They feel the pull towards it.
Yeah, definitely. I would say I for sure had that. I mean, my parents have always been, kind of eccentric. Halloween was always the favorite holiday around my house. My parents always loved creepy things. And yeah, I would say I've always just been drawn to that as well. Scooby-Doo was my favorite cartoon growing up. Especially the Hex Girls. I loved them. And just anything Halloween related, I just had such an interest in. And when I was about 8 years old, my parents, being the super normal parents that they are, were like, let's do something interesting for our anniversary. And they looked up ghost tours on the Queen Mary, which we lived very close to, and saw that a psychic named Peter James was hosting the tours, who they used to watch on sightings back when they were dating. And they were like, let's go, because what's more romantic than a ghost hunt? And so I just got jealous for some reason. I was like, why am I not going? I don't understand. And they emailed Peter and said, is it safe for our 8-year-old daughter to go on an investigation? And he said, yes, there's over 500 ghosts on the ship. All of them are my friends. And yeah, I went on what would be Peter's final tour and my first investigation, and I fell in love with the field. After Peter's tour had ended, my dad spent some time talking with him, and he actually asked my dad to co-author his book. And so then after my dad co-authored his book, we were going to paranormal events and doing a bunch of stuff. We really just kind of got thrown into the field at that point, just with, my dad going out there and promoting what was Peter's life story.
That's awesome. So, I watched some of your stuff, and I've seen that you've done a lot. You've interviewed quite a few people that are some of our favorites from Ghost Adventures, Destination Fear. One of my favorite is Amy Allen, and I saw that you had done a thing with her. Like, how is that?
Mm-hmm.
How is it when you talk to somebody who understands exactly what you're understanding? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to be able to talk to other people in the field and just hear different perspectives and different points of view. Specifically, when you're mentioning Amy Allen's episode, I had actually met her on the Queen Mary at one of Nick Groff's tour events. And
jealous.
yeah, our friend Chad was there. We were just walking, Chad Lindbergh, and he was just walking around that day, and we were walking around that day, and we saw him, and he was like, oh, just come by. So we were able to meet Amy and everyone and see Nick. And I started talking to her about, if she had been to the pool area, if she had any experiences there. Because sometimes they let people in the Queen Mary pool area, sometimes they don't. I would say probably 75% of the time they don't, 25% of the time they do. And so I was talking to her about, if she had any experiences there and what she felt, because typically in the pool area, I see who I call the shadow man. And so we were talking about our experiences of kind of seeing the same spirit there. And then when she came on my show, we just talked about, what it's like for her as a psychic, constantly seeing these ghosts. I'm not psychic, I would say I'm a sensitive, but it's incredible just to hear people who have to go through it on a daily basis and hearing their stories and just how they're able to manage day-to-day life. I couldn't imagine trying to go to sleep every night and there's 10 ghosts trying to talk to you, or just walking around at Starbucks, oh look, there's a ghost. It's so
Right.
That's
it's
gotta be
nice.
kind of difficult to survive through.
Yeah,
24 hours,
for
365.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, it's nice to be able to talk to people like her, or the cast of Destination Fear.
We're dying to get her and Zach and maybe even Nick Roth on our show would be amazing.
Yeah,
we've been struggling.
They're all really great. But it's nice, like you were saying, to talk to people who have shared interests and can relate to experiences that you've gone through that, the general public typically can't.
Right, exactly. Well, speaking
Right,
of
because
experiences,
most people look at you and they're like, a ghost, okay. So I was just kind of wondering, like my family, you know we all understand. Most of the females in our family are sensitive, so we understand. But when you try to talk to like other people, they kind of you like, so
yeah,
I was just wondering, when you do these interviews, these people have experienced the same things that, similar things that you've experienced. Does that make it like more comfortable, more understanding, things like that, than just like the rural public?
Yeah, I mean it does. I've found, at least where I live in California. People, I went to Catholic school as a child, and the girls I would go to school with were like, "That's not real. That's dumb." And as I got older, I went to high school with the same girls, and we took a tour on the Queen Mary for the Art Deco portion of our art class, and they had like a scavenger hunt. Obviously, I don't know things like when the bell was installed and stuff, so I didn't win that scavenger hunt. Like, I know a lot about the Queen Mary, but that's not it. And so they basically took them on an impromptu ghost hunt, and they were excited about it. And I think nowadays, just with mainstream media and people having interest, that it is a lot more open to people wanting to understand the paranormal or having questions. So I think that's nice too. But I mean, also having lived in a haunted house and stuff, I typically don't just like go up to people and be like, "Hey, you want to talk about ghosts?" I'm like, video games, food. So it is nice to talk to people about the paranormal, but in like my day-to-day life, I would say like I don't feel not comforted about people not talking about it, because I
right,
don't talk about it. I'm like, I'm
right.
designing a house. Like, let's talk about wallpaper.
That's great. Now, can I ask you, what was the very first experience you had that opened your eyes to the paranormal world?
hmm I would say honestly that is just for me, when you hear my story, a slightly hard question to answer, because I actually think I had paranormal experiences from a time before I can even remember, living
Oh,
in my
okay.
haunted house. So I think those experiences did shape me as, having an interest in the field and becoming an investigator. So I think those experiences are still with me, but I honestly have no recollection of them. I would say the earliest one I can remember would be on my very first ghost tour. I thought I saw a ghost in the, it's like Sir Winston's, I think, is the restaurant, and I thought I saw a ghost there. And that really cemented me into it. But the first that I can verify was definitely living in a haunted house, because it was daily and it was It was
Yeah, I can
a
relate.
nightmare. Yeah.
I can relate.
So,
We lived in a place in Washington State. I'm living in Pennsylvania now,
mhm,
but I was born and raised in Washington State, and we used to live in a place called Tillicum, apartment complexes.
mhm.
And I'm pretty sure we were haunted by some kind of demonic or dark entity because we were pretty much tormented for the years that we were there. So I can relate.
Yeah, so I feel like there's just like different first experiences for me that like kind of shape it. Like the one on the Queen Mary's, what I think really kind of drew me to keep investigating, but I can't exactly verify what happened that night since I was the only one that saw it. The first one you can verify would be living in my haunted house when I was 9. And before that, there's probably a ton that I don't even remember that changed
Oh
me as a
no.
person. Yeah, I mean, the ghost was really creepy, and my mom said in the haunted house before we knew it was haunted that probably between I was walking but not talking yet, so like
Mhm.
2 years old, I would stand with my back against the door into our garage, just frozen, staring. And
Oh my
she would call
gosh.
me. I wouldn't move unless she came and touched my hand, and then I would move. So I think I was seeing something, but I,
Mhm.
honest to God, do not remember it. But other people saw me do it, and so I think something was happening.
Oh my gosh. And I've heard that having experiences when you're younger kind
Mm-hmm.
of has a tendency to take root at that age because there are people who may have been sensitive when they were younger and had their imaginary friend
Mm-hmm.
that nobody else could see but them. And I wonder if being that young and being able to actually see something, if it maybe shapes your mind as you grow. And I don't mean just your personality, but like your mind's eye. Um, if it
Yeah,
opens you up more to seeing things that you may not normally have seen.
for sure. I definitely think so. I mean, I I think that's really what led me to have an interest in the paranormal is, just the experiences like that. Like I think one of the things that really strikes me about me as a person and how I grew is when I was a toddler, I was completely fearless. Like I was afraid of nothing. Sleepy Hollow was my favorite movie. I loved going on like the giant slides at carnivals. Like I didn't care about anything. I am like a chicken. I'm afraid of everything now. Like I don't watch horror movies, nothing. And I
Oh no!
yeah, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna watch a horror movie. Though I did see Halloween recently. I had a lot of comments on that. But like, I think that having those experiences at such a young age, I think dealing with it daily and not understanding it frightened me to a point that it changed me being fearless, careless toddler to an adult that is much more hesitant, cautious, and guarded with a lot of things.
I can honestly understand that because, like you said, it kind of shaped you as you
Mm-hmm.
grew. Um, I personally love my thrill rides, and but put me in a haunted house, and if I start hearing things talking to me, I'm going, you know what, you can have the house. You can have it. I don't want it. But it was just funny because I really want to go out and investigate places like Penhurst. I don't know if you've ever been to Penhurst before,
No, I would love
or
to.
if you've been on any ghost tours that have been on like battlefields.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to, but at the same time, it's like the first time I hear something, I'm probably gonna be like, yeah, I'm out. But I like my
Yeah.
thrill rides.
For me, if I saw a spider, I'm leaving in general. I don't care. I don't care what I'm investigating. If there's a spider there, I'm out. I am completely out. You could be in the middle of getting an amazing response that will change the field of the paranormal. I see a spider, I'm like, no, I'm gone. So I mean, yeah, I definitely think those experiences change you. I would say like if I'm just hanging out in like my day-to-day life and I am like there's something paranormal happens, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm okay. But like if I'm like on a ghost hunt, I'm like cool. Like if it's like having something from your job like come on your off time, you're like, no, I don't want to deal with this. And that's like kind of how I feel. It's like when you're on your time off, you want your time off. Like living in a haunted house, having it 24/7, I'm like, I need
I was
this
gonna say there's kind of like
separation.
no break.
Yeah, I'm like, I need like a full separation here. I've seen a lot of people online like, man, I just wish I could live in a haunted house. That'd be so cool. And I'm like, are you insane? It was literally a nightmare. What are you talking about? That is not fun. And I'm not saying every ghost is bad. I understand that. But like from my perspective, yeah, my ghost sucked. He was a stalker. He was creepy, and I did not like him.
Yeah, stalker ghosts. I'm good on that.
Yeah.
It's kind of have you ever sat in a room and felt like someone was staring at you?
Yeah,
Like
literally
you
my haunted house was constant. He would
Okay.
follow me
Now I
around
could
staring.
not live with that. I couldn't live with that.
Yeah,
I
and that's what
couldn't.
happened to me between the ages of 9 and 11 for about 2 to 3 years. Just constantly watched. It was suffocating, especially as a young girl, too.
Yeah. Sorry, my daughter's driving me insane.
It's okay.
You're not getting on my computer.
Yeah, I can understand that. You're going through everything else as a lady to now having to have somebody that you feel is watching you constantly. That must have been really for you during that age frame.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like someone in the real world stalking you, except there's not a single thing you can do about it. Like, if someone's stalking you, they could get locked up and you're okay for a period of time. When you're in your house, you're supposed to feel safe and you
Mhm.
feel absolutely frightened at any point in time. You can't go do anything. I couldn't get ready for school. I couldn't watch videos on YouTube. I couldn't watch TV. Nothing without being watched. And that ghost was focused on women. He wouldn't do it to men. He would only do it to women. And
Ooh.
it's scary when you have a guy who's, from what I saw, between 19 to 20 years old, 19 to 23 years old, just watching you as a young girl. I mean, he would watch me sleep. He would watch me do everything. He watched my cousin sleep. He
No.
watched my mom sleep. It was everyone that was a female. He would just lurk around stalking.
Right. That's creepy. I have to ask,
Mm-hmm.
in your line of work, I'm sure you've talked to a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most unique cryptid story you've ever been told? I have to know because ours is usually Bigfoot that I hear a lot about. So I want to
Yeah.
hear what ones you get to hear.
I mean, I just, it's so hard I would say probably my dad. I mean, he wasn't on my show, but he says when he was in high school, he was camping with his friend and they were in a tent and they heard like all these trees falling down and something just like running at them. And he swears
Oh
like it
no.
was Bigfoot because there's no way like anything could have done it. It wasn't a bear. Like it was something just barreling through the woods in like the middle of the night. And so
No. I've had mountain lions outside of my camp keep me from going pee, okay?
yeah,
I'm not
so
about to deal with no Bigfoot trying to chase me out the woods.
I think he saw my dad and was like, brethren. And yeah, so my dad loves when I say that in interviews, so I have to throw it in there. But yeah, I mean, I think when you have someone that you're so close to have a first person experience, it's really unique and interesting because what did you experience at such a young age in the woods that would scare you that much? I mean, my dad, when he was in high school, he was like, oh, like I took karate, like I'm a metal drummer, like he shouldn't be easily frightened by stuff. So for him to get freaked out, it had to be something.
Right. So do you believe in all paranormal things like Bigfoot, um, skinwalkers, things like that? Or is it just mainly the ghosts and stuff like that you're,
Mm-hmm.
or do you think there is a possibility past that?
Yeah, so I would say I'm a firm believer in ghosts. Everything else, I would say I don't think I'm neutral on. I'm not saying like if someone comes to me with like a story that I'm like, yes, 100% it's real because I haven't experienced it myself. And I say that for anyone who says, oh, ghosts aren't real. I get it. Unless you experience it yourself, it's hard to believe. So for me, like, unless I experience it, I don't have like that firm confirmation, but I don't disbelieve in all of that either. I think, the world's such a vast place, so is space. So when you're talking about like aliens and stuff, I think it's wrong to assume that there wouldn't be other life out there, that we're the only ones.
The government has recently admitted the existence of UFOs as of 2021.
Yeah.
So with their acknowledgement, I mean, you got to figure there's something piloting these weird crafts. It's not just, thin air. Something's doing it.
For sure.
To say that there's no existence on other planets and all of the galaxies and all of the universe is just impossible.
Definitely.
It'd be kind of a little naive.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would say I like to the other topics I keep an open mind to. Because I think,
I'm very open-minded. I believe in cryptids, but I've grown up with a slew of our own cultural beliefs. Washington, it's Bigfoot. My aunt, she's from Hawaii, so she has the creatures from the ocean. I can't remember what it's called.
Menehunes. Well, the ocean creatures, no, but they're called menehunes. They're like almost like brownie people is the best way I can describe them. And they protect certain areas in Hawaii and stuff. And grew up, there was a certain road that you couldn't, and nobody as an islander, nobody did it, but you could not go down a specific road carrying any form of pork whatsoever. And as an islander, none of us did that because we were told stories that we were afraid to even attempt to try to do that. So, it was just kind of seen like if people that deal with the supernatural have those basically kind of like the same stuff. Like, was there
like upbringing?
Yes, because like I said, that's part of our culture. Like, and we can't prove anything. I mean, I haven't seen anything like that, but my ancestors and the stories that are told by my ancestors
becomes
people have seen it.
Culture.
Yeah, for sure. I think, everyone says that myths and legends, there's always some truth to it, no matter how small. Everything is rooted in truth. And so I think, even if I haven't seen Bigfoot or have a firm, like, yes, I believe in it, no, I don't, I think that I keep an open mind to everything because you don't know what's myth or legend or fact. And until you experience it yourself or see it for yourself, I think it's good to keep an open mind because just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean it's not true.
Exactly. I have to agree with you. I think a lot of people are starting to see things a little more wide-eyed than they used to. But I think there's still a very particular group of people that are very narrow to, no, there's no such thing. And our show, we just kind of want to be like, hey, so there's X amount of believers, and you guys are the only ones that know.
Yeah. For sure.
Like, no judgment, but come on, guys.
You were saying now as an adult, you're kind of cautious with everything and stuff. Has that stopped you from doing investigations and stuff like that? Is that a big hesitant, or because you're used to the stuff that you just go, oh, I've been here before, it's the same kind of thing?
No, it hasn't stopped me from investigating. If someone was like, hey, let's go to Goatman's Bridge, I'd probably be like, no. Because, like, I don't want to go to places that, like, they, like, confirmed, like, dark presences here. Like, I'm okay. Yeah. I will pass. I had a stalker ghost. I definitely don't need that again. So, I mean, there's certain places I won't go. I try to keep it on, like, a friendlier side, which I know you can't gauge. But if I'm not going to a place like Goatman's Bridge, I would say, like, there's a higher chance that I'm not going to have that happen. I mean, like when I'm saying I'm cautious, like I'm not gonna go to Not Scary Farm or Universal Horror Nights. Like I'm a big chicken. Like I don't want to watch horror movies. None of it. Like I don't like heights. Like but like investigating, like I'm good with. It's like everything else. I'm like, yeah, like you guys were talking about Destination Fear. I saw them investigate that one like skyscraper, and they sent someone on the elevator up, and I'm like, you know what? I'm so good not doing that. Like you could put me in the basement, I'm fine, but like don't send me on a creepy elevator up to like the 30th floor. I don't like heights. Like
one of
so
the
it's basically normal stuff.
It's normal stuff. Yeah. I
like I know one of the buildings they had gone to, I think it's the same one. It was the glass floor, and the floor had actually had to be replaced because it fell out, and they went on it. I'm like, no, it fell. No.
Yeah, like I'm good. It's for me, it's more normal stuff, but I guess people assume because I'm an investigator that for me, normal stuff should be horror movies and like Halloween Horror Nights, and I'm like, no. And they're like, but you hunt ghosts. I'm like, no one's chasing me with a knife. What? There's no correlation there.
Right? You're not running at fast speed and they're walking after you and catch up to you.
Oh, look, I get tired. I was bad at PE. I don't need anyone chasing me. Like, I'm fine. I'll trip and fall. Like, honestly, if I was on an investigation, I got scratched or like I fell over, most people would be like, a ghost day. I'd be like, what'd I do? Like, I'm too accident prone to ever assume that a ghost had ever harmed me because, like, I can easily do it to myself.
I feel you there. I'm just as bad.
Yeah.
There's times I've had like bruises. I'm like, where did I even get that? Like, how did I do that?
I have bruises now that I'm like, I don't know where you came from, but I'm just gonna assume it was something I did. So, yeah, like, I mean, it hasn't really changed. Yeah, it hasn't changed the way I investigate. I would say the only thing is like I wouldn't go do like a residential investigation, but that's mainly because as a 23-year-old, I'm trying to figure out life myself. And I think when you're investigating home hauntings, you really have to have a delicate touch. I mean, some people have mental illness. My grandfather actually used to live in my home before me. My dad's adopted, but his adoptive father was a paranoid schizophrenic. So my dad moved out of the house at the age of 9 after my grandfather died in the home. He was not the ghost stalking me, though. That I can say. Yeah, so I mean, there was multiple ghosts there, but he wasn't the one stalking the females. And, I think, my grandfather used to guard the Pope in Italy. And so he had a very angels and demons outlook on life. And I think that, yes, there's people that, are paranoid schizophrenics that can, I don't know how to put it best, but like, see things that aren't there relative to ghosts. And that doesn't mean that a place is haunted. It could just be their mental illness. But I also think there's that slim gray area where you have someone like my grandfather who was a paranoid schizophrenic in a haunted house, and how much of what was happening to him was caused by the haunting. People would brush it off as just mental illness. But I think when you're dealing with home hauntings, you have people who are actually mentally ill, people who are mentally ill and experiencing a haunting, and people, that don't have mental illness are dealing with a haunted house. And then people who aren't in a haunted house and have something that can be easily explained. So there's those different levels and variations. And I think you really, when doing an investigation like that, need to be someone that has the life skills to deal with someone that has a child that's going through it. I can't relate to someone who has a child going through it. Yes, I was a child that went through it, but I'll never know what my parents went through. And so I think you have to have a certain sensitivity and outlook on life and perspective that someone as young as me doesn't have yet.
Right. I do, and my aunt does. I have 3 children, and she has 3 children. So we actually have my cousin who is sensitive. She sees things in where they're living right now that tend to cause her some disconcern or fear in certain times. So, being the parent seeing this, and like my aunt was saying, I'm a sensitive, she's a sensitive, and her daughter's a sensitive. So I feel things a little more than the average Joe, and So does my aunt, and so does her child. Um, so and like you should be able to know the difference between a place that's haunted and one that isn't, because you
Mhm.
can feel it in the atmosphere. It's not
Absolutely.
it's not just hearing voices and RVPs. Um, I can't think today.
EVPs.
EVPs. I can't think today. My brain just kind of shut down earlier. um, but it's also in the atmosphere. You can feel if it's
Mhm.
looming, whether it's darkness, whether it's kind of heightened electricity sensing, things like that. You can feel the difference. Now, I have to ask you, besides your childhood home, when you've gone on
Mhm.
investigations, has there any been one particular place that kind of made your hair stand on end and made you think maybe I shouldn't be here?
Yeah, definitely. I would say there's two instances of that. One wasn't just me walking in and feeling the atmosphere. So the first one I had was, and I know a lot of people talk about it, but the Queen Mary pool area. As I was mentioning earlier, I've seen a man in there I call the Shadow Man since I was very young. And he's always just looming, lurking, creepy, and I don't like him. He doesn't like me. Mutual, fine, whatever. And he never really did anything. And the night, so I actually filmed on the Queen Mary with Ghost Adventures back when they did that episode,
Okay.
and yeah, it was an amazing night, one of the best investigations I've ever been on. But anyone who's gone to the Queen Mary pool area knows that it always has lights on, very low lighting. And when I was there with Ghost Adventures, it was the very first time I'd ever been in the pool area with all the lights off. And I don't know how to explain it exactly because it's kind of confusing to even say, but the Shadow Man was more powerful with the lights off. It was like he was in multiple places at once. And
Oh wow.
at one point, I felt him on the second story balcony on the right hand side. And right there, I wanted to say, that's where the Shadow Man is. And I felt like I was going to cry if I said anything. And Zach actually got rushed by the ghost, and my mom could hear the footsteps running at him. And
I've seen all of his investigations, and I think I know what you're talking about, and I don't know why I didn't recognize you right then.
I mean, I was a blonde, so I guess
I
that
was gonna
changed.
say maybe that's what it is, because now you've got what looks like brown hair going on. Looks
Yeah,
gorgeous,
this is
by
my
the way.
natural hair. Thank you. And I was 15 too, so
A little bit younger,
that's
yeah.
I was blonde, pre-nose job, couldn't breathe at one point, had to have that fixed. So a little bit of changes from that point, but yeah, it was an amazing night. You could feel. I mean, the EVPs we got were so clear and so strong and so angry, and it was like nothing I had ever experienced. But upon returning to the pool area after that investigation, I actually felt like we were there actually with my parents and Amy Goodwin, Aaron's sister. And I felt like, if we stayed in the pool area, something bad was going to happen. And so I was like, no, I don't want to find out if I'm right or wrong. Let's just leave. So for that, I mean, I'd never experienced a ghost just grow in strength, having that difference, specifically since he was a shadow person.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only other time I did an investigation last year in Ghost Town in Montana, and I was doing the Estes method, and the person was under, and I was asking questions, and everything that he was saying and was coming out of the questions it was like Clarice Darling and talking to Hannibal Lecter. It was so unnerving and so
That's kind of, oh,
creepy.
I know what you mean, like the creepy, what do you want to call it? Quick pro quo, when he's asking her personal questions about herself, and she's like, "No, I
Yeah.
can't tell you
I
that."
well, I ended the last thing that he had said to me while he was under the SDs before I ended the session, and this is what made me end it, is he said smile, which is normally what like really creepy people say to women. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we're done here. And I had turned on the EVP recorder during that session, and you could hear like the ghost talking and responding, and it was so intense because I've never actually talked to a spirit like that, and it was just something that really gives you pause.
Hi, Daddy. Sorry, my son's
It's
father just
okay.
called. I'm gonna mute me for a second so you can talk.
Yeah, so I mean, that was the second point where I was just like, this is, one of those investigations that really gives you pause and makes you think about like what you're actually dealing with here.
Yeah, and see, I've only had a couple instances where I've gone in and kind of turned right back around and was like, I'm good. That would probably be one of those ones that you were going through that I'd been like, no, you had it. I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah, he was being really creepy, and that particular ghost was focused on the daughter that lived in that town, and it was just one of those things where you don't know who or what you're talking to, if this is actually how they act, if they're trying to get a rise out of you. But either way, it's one of those things where you're just like, what? Why are you saying things like that? It's just weird.
Right.
Sorry.
What was your
talk to his dad?
What was you like besides you said you've done a lot of the Queen Mary? Besides that, like what was your most like unforgettable investigation?
I mean, like I said, besides the Queen Mary, but the Ghost Night with Ghost Adventures was unforgettable because it was so amazing, the equipment they have and everything. Other than that, I would say one of my most unforgettable experiences was actually not while I was investigating. I was at the Glen Tavern Inn in Santa Paula, California, and we were there for Debbie Constantino was hosting an event there. So we were there, and I'd gotten there. It's a very unusual place. If you've seen it, it's just kind of out of place in that town. It's like very Victorian looking, and it's just in this small kind of like farming community. And when you walk through the hotel, they have a bunch of movie posters up, like old movie posters. And I love old films. So I was walking through, just looking at the movie posters, just super excited. And on the first floor on the right-hand side, they have a hallway down, and I'm walking down the hallway, and the further down I get towards the end, my throat's getting tighter and tighter. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to find out what happens if I go to the end. So I told my mom, I'm like, I'm done looking at the posters. I'm just going to go back because my throat keeps getting tight. And as soon as I leave that area, you feel it lessening, the tightness.
That's scary.
Yeah, so my mom was like, well, I'm gonna go ask what happened. I'm like, don't do that. I was like, don't do that. Just like leave it. And so she runs
like, we don't want to stir it up.
I'm like, just like leave me alone. I'm just trying to look at movie posters. And so she goes to the front desk and she asks the front desk attendant, who at the time was Brandon Alvis of Ghost Hunters, and she goes, what happened down that hallway? And he goes, oh, the groundskeeper 5 years prior hung himself on the floor above.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you were feeling the energy that was probably left over from what had happened to him.
Yeah. And that actually is the second time that happened to me. The time after that was when I was at that ghost town. I was in a cabin and I was like, I feel something over here. And then the daughter goes, oh yeah, we had a psychic come in and she said that he said that a man hung himself there. And I was like, wonderful. It's like wonderful. That's like my thing. I can just pick up on people who hung themselves. That's a great skill.
Right? I'm checking. Must be somebody that hung themselves. Great.
Yeah,
now that I know.
So that was like one of the most memorable experiences because it was physically affecting me. And that's not typical. It's very, a strange thing to have happen, especially since it's confirmed like that. I'm not investigating. I'm not looking for anything. I just arrived at the hotel and just wanted to look at movie posters. And to just have that reaction unprompted, anything, not knowing the backstory of that, nothing, is just crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of scary. And to know the backstory that you were feeling the pressure and suffocation feeling. I'm good on that. I've had some crazy ones, but I'm good on that one. I had gone to Fort Monroe. I don't know if you've ever been there. They finally dismantled it, so to speak, or retired it and opened it to the public. And I decided I was going to go for a joyride at 3 o'clock in the morning because I was bored. Because, why not? And we were driving through there and we could hear screaming, but the base was completely empty because they hadn't opened it during the nighttime, only during the day. And we were kind of doing what we weren't supposed to be doing. And my friend was driving. She goes, "You know what? I'm done." And she turns the car around, and then we just kind of left. But I don't think I've ever had the crushing or choking
Mhm.
feeling before. I've had it to where it's been hard to breathe, like someone's sitting on me, but never like I was being choked. Like that's pretty scary.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird thing to have happen, and it's an experience. It's just like, I didn't know any of that when I walked in there, and it's just one of those things where it's like, that's a real paranormal experience because you don't know it. It's not like pareidolia. I'm making myself like a confirmation bias or something. It's like completely. Oh, I had another weird experience too. This has nothing to do with my throat closing up or paranormal really. But I was one time when I was like probably 7 or 8, I was asleep one time and I had this dream and I was so excited. I was in a hotel all by myself and it wasn't dilapidated, nothing. There was a turtle pond. I saw all the artwork. I was like, this is awesome. And a few years later, we're driving to my aunt's house and we stop at a hotel to get food, and it was the exact hotel down to the turtle pond.
Oh
Oh
wow.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
So that's
crazy.
yeah, that's just another one of those things where it's like a weird, memorable experience that it's like, how do you explain that?
Yeah, like deja vu almost kind of deal.
Yeah, it
Only
was like, I was like, you can't have a turtle pond, and it had a turtle pond. I was like, cool. But they have really good crab cakes there, so I assume it's just like my subconscious telling me, good place to eat.
there you go. Your subconscious was hungry.
Yeah, it's my superpower. I dream about great places to eat. It's very helpful.
Okay. So as far as your show, did you have any clips
Mhm.
that you wanted to share?
I don't have them on me, but I definitely, if anyone wants to listen to any of the past archived interviews, like you said, you had seen the Amy Allen interviews. A few of the previous interviews I've done, like Destination Fear, Nick Groff, Ghost Brothers, you can also find those on the Ghost Host Sophia Temporelli YouTube channel. I have like a short investigation I did with my friend on there of the Queen Mary. So you can see that. Definitely anyone who has Discovery Plus or I guess on demand on Travel Channel, you can find the Ghost Adventures episode on the Queen Mary, which was a lot of fun to do. And it's really exciting to see just the evidence they captured there.
That's awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, again, follow Sophia Temporelli on you said Discovery Channel and
Yeah, so you can go
your
to
podcast.
yeah,
Thank you.
youtube.com, Ghost Host Sophia Temporelli. You can listen to my show on liveparanormal.com every Saturday from 12 to 1 p.m., 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, you can listen to archive shows, iTunes podcasts, Spreaker, Blog Talk Radio, iHeartRadio. And yeah, you can go to Twitter, Ghost Host Show, Sophia Temporelli, Instagram, Sophia Temporelli, Facebook, The Ghost Host Sophia Temporelli. So there's a lot of places.
Surprisingly enough, that's how I found you.
Yeah.
Everybody has Facebook these days. I was so afraid though, because I've had a couple of people that have pretended to be so and so. So when I was talking to, I'm assuming your business agent or
It's my father.
oh, your father. Okay.
Yeah. So
He's
I
your
guess
manager.
yeah, he's my manager. When I start the show at 12, you don't really want a 12-year-old contacting strangers on the internet.
Yeah, no.
So my dad's handled it since the beginning of the show. And like I said, my dad co-authored the book. So we went to tons of events and we met so many amazing people
I
in
would
the
love
field.
to have him on the show and get some of his thoughts and experiences.
Yeah,
That would be awesome.
for sure. And so when we started my radio show, my parents already knew so many people. Like Debbie Constantino was my mom's best friend.
These people.
Well, Debbie unfortunately passed away.
Oh no.
Yeah, she was murdered by her husband, Mark.
Oh no. Oh.
So
okay.
yeah, that happened a few years ago. It was difficult, but she was my mom's best friend before she passed, and we met her through events, and my parents and her really bonded when they spent the night on Alcatraz. So they've done stuff like that, but they met so many amazing people in the field that when I started my radio show, my dad was able to just reach out to them and say, hey, will you come on Sophia's show? And I mean, when you've been doing it for so long, you don't really want to change it up just because I turned 18 or something.
Right. Maybe you can send me some of your secrets. I'm trying to get Zach on the show, daggone it. I've been trying for months.
Well, I don't think he really does radio shows. I've never even had him on.
Oh, no.
I think he only maybe does Dave Schrader's. He's an amazing guy, super nice, but I don't really think he does radio shows, at least anymore. I think maybe in the beginning. But yeah, he's super cool, and there's so many amazing people in the field too.
Yeah, I want to get Amy on here too. I'm so jealous that you got her.
Yeah, she was really cool, very nice. It's amazing just the people you'll meet and get to talk to and just have things to relate to in and out of the field, and just hearing their stories is so incredible. Just, you know,
she's a
growing
very
up with
inspiring medium because the way she does her work is completely blind, and she's got the detective with her that does all of the background while she's doing the foreground, and then when they come together, it's amazing how accurate her observations are when she's done doing her investigation.
For sure. It's so unique in the way they do it, where you do just go in blindly and get in and see, you know, what does match up. And I think that's just a really interesting thing, that people in the paranormal, people's unique style of investigating. Just how everyone is, you know, you can take EVPs and stuff, but everyone does things slightly different, and just how you can learn so much from just talking to other people in the field.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is finding the way into the field, because there's, you know, you can go on Facebook and find 150,000 different paranormal groups from all over the world, and only about 2% of them are actually people that want to talk to you about their experiences or anything like that. So it's kind of like you get in there and you try, but nobody wants to connect. And when you do get people that do connect, it's usually the ones that kind of go, I think I might have kind of sort of possibly had an experience, but I don't know. But I'll tell you about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy when you go to family events and people are like trying to talk about ghosts, and I'm like, it's a Christmas party. Like,
oh, I know. Right?
You're like,
party.
I'm like,
Halloween.
Yeah, like, I'm just trying to get the Mexican food, man. Like,
you're like, I'm waiting for the presents. Hello.
Well, I'm from a Mexican family, so like there's always good food at events and stuff, and it's like it's really great to see you, cousin, but food's that way, and I kind of want to go to it. Everyone's like, why do you always sit by yourself? And it's like, I just want to eat. Like, I don't know what to say to you. I'm like one of the youngest members of my family, so it's like I don't know what to say to people. Like,
right, and then you don't want everything to about your ghost hunting and all that stuff. You know, I get it. Is it really hard when, you know, because you have your family and stuff, and they see that you have this podcast, you've done this, you've done that. Is it really hard to be like your family because they want to ask all these kind of things from you, and you know, like, do you get? Does that make sense?
Time without the ghosts.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's just like different. But we went to my little cousin's baptism recently, and I talked to my younger 13-year-old cousin. That's fine. Like, I'm fine talking about the paranormal, but like when someone like wants to talk like hours about it, I'm like, okay, that is cool, but there's so many other topics. I mean, my immediate family, like, they don't care. My aunt, like, she doesn't really my aunt's in a very gray area. She will tell you like night and day that she doesn't believe in ghosts, but will also tell you about experiences she has. And so I'm like,
skeptical believer.
Is it? Well, she's very smart. She's very smart, very logical. So I think that side of her wants to say, no, it's not real. But then the other side of her is like, yes, but I have had this experience. So it's like that gray area. But like my immediate family, they don't care. They'll just talk about whatever. It's more the extended family that you don't see often, that I think they don't know what to like say to you. So they're like, paranormal. And it's like, yes, like I was able to get one of my cousins who was talking about the paranormal to argue with me about video games, and that for me was like exciting. I'm like, yes, a family event, because it's like I do love the paranormal, but like I said, I think with anything in life you have to have that break. Like someone asked me on a radio show recently, what is your advice for listening to EVPs? And I said, take a step back, take a break, watch TV, do anything that's not paranormal, go eat something, because when you're so in it, I think you can miss the big picture and miss a lot of the little details because you're focusing so hard on one spot. And I think that even when you're in the paranormal, it's good to have a healthy balance between other aspects of life, because when it sucks you in so much, you can lose part of yourself, or you can miss things that are right in front of you because you're trying so hard.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I actually have someone that sent me quite a few EVPs a while back.
Mhm.
And, he can understand what's being said on them. And I have to really, because my hearing versus everybody else's hearing, I have an awful hearing. I
Mhm.
really do. If I'm sitting there, I would not be a good video or audio analyst whatsoever. So I'm trying to listen, and in order to hear some of them, you can hear them kind of clearly. Some of them are class A, but then there's some that are kind of garbled. And he's
Mhm.
like, "Don't you hear this?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, my hearing is awful. But so that's why I'll share the EVPs on here, and I'll be like, "Hey guys, tell me what you think it says. I can't
Yeah.
understand what it's saying. Tell me what you think it says, and maybe see if you can get other ears involved, and see, X amount of people are hearing this, so maybe it's closer to this than this."
For sure. And I think it's like, when you study something in school and you study it so much to the point where, yeah, you know it well, but you cross that border to where you've studied it so much, you forget everything because you burned yourself out. And so I think, when you're doing stuff and just living normal life, you just kind of want to live that normal life, because the paranormal is like almost a zone you have to be in, so that when you go in there, you really are focused on it. And I mean, there are people that see it differently and can do it all night and day, which is cool. Like, people have different styles. Just for me personally, I think that, living, like I said, in a haunted house, you want that separation in life. And I think for me, it helps me as an investigator, because when I investigate, I just like to go with the flow, see things like, oh, I feel something in this room, I'll go here. But if you focus on it night and day, then you're going to have sort of a confirmation bias, or see things that aren't there because you want it so badly. So if you just let things happen as they are and not force something, then you'll get way better results.
Right, exactly. And I have to agree with that, because I have a son who swears up and down he always hears things in my house. And I'm like, "No, there's nothing here. I would feel it if it's here." "No, I swear I hear talking and I hear wind blowing." And I'm like, "The fan's on, the TV's running."
Yeah.
So he's kind of wanting to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he's forcing himself to experience it. And I have to explain to him, not everywhere you go, you're going to get activity.
Absolutely.
It will take you to a real place that has activity. But don't try to make activity where there isn't any.
And I think it can happen both ways too. You can miss something because you're, like I said, you're so focused on trying to get something that when it's actually happening, you're focusing on the thing that isn't actually happening. And then the thing that is, you're just blowing it off because you're focused on this one thing. And then if you're so skeptical that you don't believe anything, then a ghost could literally like slap you in the face and you're like, okay, prove it to me. That didn't mean it was a ghost. So I think you have those both sides of the coin, where you look at it too closely, you're missing what's right next to you because you're looking ahead. And then if you are so focused on disproving everything as a skeptic because you want to find that one real piece, then you're missing all the amazing things that could be happening around you because you want to, your expectations are too high, because EVPs aren't always class A. You're not always going to see a full figured apparition, and so you have to find kind of that sweet spot of what's actually happening around you.
So have you ever had the point in time where you're investigating got to the point where you felt it was too much? You're almost like you that's all you were basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's how everybody or looked at you, and it was just like, oh well, she's just a ghost hunter, you know, or host and stuff. Sorry, I said hunter.
No, it's okay. I definitely, like I said, I went to Catholic school, and I've had my thoughts and theories and beliefs come from my time in Catholic school. But I would say, I tend not to care, like, if people see me as just like the paranormal investigator, unless it's like, day-to-day life, because that is a big part of my life. But it's not like the first thing I want someone to know about me, because I don't want them to just judge me based on the fact whether they believe ghosts are real or not. So I would say I haven't gotten to a point where I'm like, that's all people see me as, because I try to allow people to see every side of myself, where, they can see that I'm kind of a nerd. I like video games. I like Marvel movies. And also I'm an investigator, because I think for a lot of people, they see these paranormal investigators like Zach, and, Zach has a great on-screen persona, but he's like very brooding, and people kind of assume that's just how all investigators are. They're just goth and brooding, and they're not looking at them as the person that they are, with interests and fascinations that are outside of it all. And so I think just, people see me that way, but I also try to show them different sides of me, so people can see the paranormal as more than what it is, that we're real people trying to experience other real people who have passed on. Ghosts aren't just demonic or, made by Satan like some people think. I think that personally, my belief on the afterlife is that it's purgatory, because you don't see ghosts from the 1200s, the 1300s. They disappear at a certain point. And I think that, even though I don't know where they go, that it's potential for them to be in a purgatory-like state.
I'm sorry, I had to take a phone call real quick. I hate doing that in the middle of it. Okay, so I have one last question for you, because we are starting to hit my hour mark, which I hate, because I love talking to you guys when we get good conversation going. But when you go on your investigations, have you ever had the fear of bringing back an attachment, and what do you do to prepare for investigations in the meantime, to protect yourself?
Yeah, I feel like just going on any investigation, there's always that fear in the back of your mind of having an attachment. But also, from my experience in a haunted house, no one could get rid of it. It wasn't going to go away. And I truly believe that there's nothing I can do to protect myself. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And you just have to hope that it won't, because I don't think there's any way to stop that from happening. So I think there's always that fear, but, if you're going to investigate, that's just a risk that comes with, investigating and being in the paranormal.
Absolutely. I think the same way. I have friends that go, oh, well, I take St. Christopher with me, and I'll wear a cross with me. Or, I'm like, that's all great. But if it really, really wants to come home with you, it's going to come home with you.
Yeah.
Especially in what I consider demonically possessed homes, or places that have like shadow people, or what's the other one? The ones that like have red eyes and things that like that. If they want to come home with you, they're going to come home with you. I don't think there's any real way to protect yourself against it either, but there are things that you can do in order to rid yourself of them or cleanse yourself of them. Just sometimes it takes time.
Yeah, definitely. I think whatever makes someone feel better going into an investigation, I'm all for. I can't say for 100% that those protections don't work. Just in my personal opinion, as me as a person, they aren't going to work for me, because there was nothing to help me. There was no savior for me when I'm dealing with it for 2 years straight every day. And so that's just how I go into investigating, is believing that, if it wants to happen, it is, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, your experiences kind of prepped you for
Yeah, the trauma's already there. I'm like, I'm already
You've already got the
traumatized.
expectation of the worst case scenario.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
already
like,
there.
I'm already traumatized. Yes, it could get worse, but what am I gonna do? I'll just go keep investigating. It's already there. What am I
Let's
gonna
just
do
hope
about
we
it?
bring home, friendlier ghosts later on.
I just want to bring home like food after investigation, no ghost, friendly or not.
Hey, I just want my burritos, or
Yeah.
one of my favorite dishes of all times is snow crab. I just want to bring home my
Yeah.
snow crab and my butter and my drink, and not have to worry about.
Yeah.
And do I have guests over for dinner?
Yeah, any ghost, Casper or not, can stay where they are. I'm just gonna take home the food, and I'm good.
Absolutely. Well, as much as I hate to say it, because I love staying on and talking, and I wish I could talk forever, but unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Ladies of the Paranormal World, and thank you to our BVIP, Sophia Temporelli from the Ghost Host Show. Again, follow her on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I'm missing, I'm sure, 100 of them, because there's so many platforms these days.
Yeah, there is.
And follow her on Discovery Channel.
Yeah, well, you can see the
Or
Ghost
Discovery
Adventures
Plus,
episode.
I think it is.
Yeah, you can watch the Ghost Adventures episode on Discovery Plus. I'm not personally, but it would be cool. I mean, to go back.
You're working your way there, honey. You keep going the way you are, you might be the next star on TV.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
Hey, I started this out of just having fun, and I've got more followers than I thought I would, and I'm always having at least 2-3 people a day going, hey, I want to be on your show. So you never know.
Yeah.
But again, it was absolutely a pleasure having you on. And hey, have your dad text me or something. I would love to have his input on some, experiences. It's pretty awesome.
For sure.
Maybe not growing up in it, but just be able to say, hey, this is what we lived through. It'd be pretty awesome just to hear his perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Be safe out there in your investigations. When's your next tour?
I don't have a next tour right now. I am going to be at the OC Paracon, which is, I think, the first weekend of October. So everyone can buy tickets to that and check it out. I'm going to be a part of the broadcasting in the paranormal panel. It's hosted by Henry San Miguel, who's a great friend. And there's other amazing guests. And check it out. I mean, there's not much to say. It's like the first event in California in like such a long time. So
you guys just moved from Cali.
My co-host.
Yeah, we just moved from San Bernardino to Vegas.
Yeah, so it's like the first OC event I think that they've had, and it's like the first event in a long time. The last ones were like during COVID, which I did event on the Queen Mary with the Dark Zone, so those were closed off to people. So this is the first ones with like guests and people who can purchase tickets in like a pretty long time. So make sure to check that out, the OC Paracon.
That's awesome. I hope to see you there. And I don't know if I'll be able to make it. Unfortunately, I live in Pennsylvania and I have 3 kids and a billion bills.
Yeah, but it's hard.
Take pictures, share them out. We'll love to be there live vicariously through you.
For sure.
And you guys have a wonderful night. And again, thank you all for being here and having an amazing discussion with Dark Angel, Drusilla, Wendigo, and Skinwalker, and our VVIP, Sophia Temporelli. You guys have a wonderful night.